All right, welcome back to the channel, Living Christian. My name is Jason Breda. We're going through a little mini series here where we're learning how to interpret the Bible. It's called Navigating Biblical Interpretation. In this part, we're going to talk about the hermeneutical approach that is vital. If you're new here, just so you know, this channel is solely focused on helping people know the Bible and how to counsel from it. And so you'll see videos on here on how to counsel, even just the process of counseling in general. My heart is to help Christians be equipped for the ministry of discipleship. Start with the clear passages that you see in the Bible, okay? So you always start with the clear passages. And then you move to the obscure passages, and you let the clear passages dictate the meaning of the obscure passages. I don't want to give any examples in this series. Okay, I want you to be able just to take the principles and basically through your discernment and what you see, is this a good way? And I'd love to be challenged on this. Is this the right way to interpret the Bible? So start with clear passages. Let the clear passages help you understand the meaning of the obscure passages as often as available as they can be, okay? And then you move into what's called the inductive method. So observation, interpretation, application. With the inductive method, and I'll explain more about that in a separate video, you want to observe the text, you want to interpret the text, and it's for the purpose of applying application to your life, right? So that you can glorify God. Now, here is a terrible mistake that people can make. Let me tell you that the incorrect way to do this is you start with a presupposition. And those presuppositions are now then read into the text. I heard a pastor say this recently.
One of the things that I wanted to do, and this was kind of an underlying commitment in my heart, was to exposit the entire New Testament. And I thought not only would that be the greatest thing I could do in my life, to provide for the congregation the whole New Testament explained and applied, but I also thought that could test my theology. If my theology, if the convictions that I held theologically were true, they would stand the test of exposition. So your theology goes into the fire in every text, right? And it has to survive the fire of every text. Someone who for 50 years has taken every text of the Bible and put doctrine into that text and see if it survives. And I can say that it has.
I was actually shocked that he said this. He said, I took my theology to the text to see if it could stand the test. And there's two different ways that you can interpret what he is saying when he says something like that. Well, okay, are you starting with a presupposition? Are you starting with a premise, an idea of what you believe to know in Scripture? And then are you trying to go into the Scriptures to see if you can validate to what you at least presuppose is true is actually true? Because I'm telling you, if you do that, one you'll probably be able to validate in many cases whatever those presuppositions are. But two, that's not the right way to do it. You never want to assume certain things onto the text, no matter how good they sound, and no matter how many other quote-unquote faithful brothers are out there in church history that hold to certain things. You never want to just take something at face value, assume it's the truth, and now apply that to the text. You always want to do the opposite. You always want to submit to the text and draw out from Scripture what the Scriptures are actually communicating. And it's harder. It's harder to do that. It's easier to assume certain things and believe a certain way and put that into the text. You always want to draw from the text. So, all that to say, you can read into the text many of things. And then as you do that, and there's just a little example here. I saw this on another channel, so I'm totally taking this from another channel that I think this was just a really good way to view it, is that you now are putting those presuppositions into the text. And what many people do is they put that over the obscure texts, the harder texts, basically, to interpret. Well, this is a hard text, and I'm going to take this presupposition that I have that I believe is true. Maybe it's because I heard another pastor say it and they had good argumentation. Maybe because it's very pious in its thought, in whatever the case. And I'm going to put it into the text and see if I can find it. And trust me, again, like I said, if you want to do that, you'll find that. You will find what you're looking for if that's how you try to interpret the Bible. And especially with the harder texts, it's easier with the harder texts. But then what happens when you do this? If you start with the harder texts of Scripture and you put on the harder texts of Scripture presuppositions from different theologians or backgrounds or teachers or whatever the case, now that it forces you to change the clear texts to bend to the obscure text. So do you see how that could be very problematic? You're going to make things sound differently to fit your presuppositions because that's how you believe the harder texts of Scripture are actually interpreted. And so I think that's a miss. I think it's a big miss. And I've seen it personally where it's affected the way that people view what a lot of people would say are just very clear texts in Scripture. So don't do that. Just don't take presuppositions and put it into the text. Don't do that. Try to shake off presuppositions. Try to go to the text, contextually try to understand what is being communicated to the original audience from God's intent for them. And once you understand God's intent for them and how they would have understood it, then you can draw proper interpretation of and application for your life. So the correct way, I would say, or at least the better way to do this, is you start with the clear text of Scripture. And then you use the clear text to help you interpret the obscure or the more difficult texts, right? You take what is plain and simple, and hopefully, though, through that process, you will eliminate incorrect presuppositions. But you also have to be willing to do that. We as people have valued greatly from those who have come before us and those who have spent much time in the Word. And so this is not to say that they're wrong. Anyone in biblical history is wrong. But I think it puts everyone in a very humble position. You going through a process like this and going to the text may come out believing something differently than what you originally did because you listened to man and not the Word and man's interpretation of it, instead of having the Spirit lead you to what the text really says. And then as a result, you might change your position on certain things. That does not mean that you are higher and mightier than anyone else. We are all coming to the text, hopefully, with a humble heart, a humble spirit to say, God, teach me your ways, teach me your word. Help me grow an understanding of who you are through this. Help me get the text right. And I think in many cases that is the intentions of many people. But you can have all the best intentions and still miss things. So again, we got to approach this with humility and really listen to the Spirit and really be saturated in the Word that way. Don't just take another person's opinion over it. Really try to work it out. And that's the call to action that I'm trying to strive for with this. So thanks so much for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, and hope you're blessed by this. Take care.